Welcome to ArtSpeaks, connecting the creative community with Fulton County residents. I'm Lionel Thomas, Director of Fulton County Arts and Culture. Today, we'll connect you to art aficionado Dr. Glenn Toby, founder and CEO of Glenn Toby Enterprises, a leading international holding corporation with interests in real estate, asset management, including an entertainment and sports management company. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back. We're back with Dr. Glenn Toby. Thank you for being with us on ArtSpeak today.
Pleasure to be here.
You have such an eclectic background. We want to start with the childhood and let the viewers know a little bit about you. So if you could tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my family's from Georgia, but I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. I was homeless from 8 years old to about the 7th grade. So youth homelessness has always been a big part of my life, a big concern, and one of my drivers. And I think it pushed me for education and the arts and imagination, because when you're a displaced youth, in my time, you know, you could read books or wasn't much you could do at 8, 9, 10 years old. You know, even when you go to the bathroom, your parents have to walk you to the bathroom.
So back up a minute. How did you get homeless? I mean, tell us about that.
So my mother worked for the New York State Retirement Employees Board, and her supervisor had taken money from the system. There was some fiduciary improprieties. My mother was supposed to go in and be a witness and testify and be involved, and he was trying to clean his mess up. My mother's a resolute woman, still with us today. Stood up, she refused to break, she refused to get involved in the case at all. She just kept her truth, stood to herself, and it created nervous breakdown, you know, a lot of stress. And from that stress, we were displaced, and over time, dementia sets in and all these other psychological things, and that's what took us right to the street. Real serious, major issue.
Yeah. So fast forward, let's talk about your education and how you got, towards this career path, I guess.
Yeah.
So you started in sports management.
Sports, music.
Music, and how did you follow that path?
Well, that path, I am one of the pioneers of hip hop. I was called Sweetie G. I was with Mike and Dave, Dougie Fresh, Biz Markie, all the different rappers, Grandmaster Flash, these guys. So I got a PhD in the streets. More creative, moving around, having fun, learning culture, finance, and education on a street basis. And then from that, went to Queens College, came through Queens College, was honored to go to University of Kathmandu in DePaul, my PhD. But my street PhD and my academic PhD forged my view of how I kind of draw from my skill set and how I intermodulate into different businesses and worlds.
So let's back up to the music piece. Tell us more about that. You know, how did you really get involved?
So from music, I grew up in the same community with Russell Simmons, Run DMC, LL Cool J, and before records came out, I used to make something called pause tapes. And these were tapes we used to, pass out in high school, things like that.
Tell us what pause tapes are.
Pause tapes where you take...
Viewers who don't know what that is.
Yeah, this is good. Pause tapes, or where you take 2 tape recorders, they would be like boom boxes. You play the music on this one, you take the microphone in this one, and when that's playing, you're recording, you rapping over it, almost like a multi-track. Right. And then mine were...
Before they had the multiple tracks.
Before there was multi-tracks. Right. And before we could even get access to them, I'm sure there was always 1 or 2 track recordings, but in the hood, that was the best most access we could get. From there, I put out a record that was critically acclaimed, but then the massive records came out. Run DMC, It's Like That, Curtis Blow, and I went to the left knowing that I was not gonna have the kind of success that I wanted, and I wasn't willing to give up half my publishing or all of my publishing. From there, I went into the business world, came out of that, came back, co-managed LL Cool J with Charles Fisher. We were involved in R. Kelly's career, Positive K, countless other artists that I've either managed, discovered, or produced. From there, I bought a sports firm, Alonzo Shavers and I. We probably did a few $100 million in business. We got Asante Samuel his $61 million deal. sold that firm, and then I've become an entrepreneur and heavy in the humanities, heavy in charity with the Book Bank Foundation, and that's kind of the space I'm in now.
So the space you're in now, and I know you do a lot of work with emerging artists and giving back to the community. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, the Book Bank Foundation is a not-for-profit charity. It's been around for about 22 years. It's education-based. Our mission is to destroy poverty, ignorance, illiteracy, incarceration, and bridge the gap of economic disparity. We use critical thinking methods, we use programs, tools, the arts, music, sports, fashion, and these are the things that I think call young people, and older people do have an interest in it. We receive no salaries, we don't have an ongoing budget, we don't have an office. It's community activism at its best.
So let's put a pin in that, and we're going to talk more about that on ArtSpeaks. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with Dr. Glenn Toby as we explore his commitment to the community. So before we went to break, we talked about the Book Bank. Can you tell us more about the Book Bank?
Yeah, so the Book Bank Foundation is a 501c3. We've been in existence over 22 years. It's education-based. We use different modalities in order to reach people, educate, cure the illness of poverty and illiteracy and things like that.
So you say we, who's the we?
So the we are hundreds of members that we have. We have a chapter in South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Las Vegas, New York, Philadelphia, quite a few. And it's Atlanta.
Okay. Right.
Atlanta, right, absolutely. And some of the things we do obviously workshops, which are critical thinking workshops, which motivate and increase awareness using reading, teaching methodology, sometimes arts and sciences, sometimes sports, and sometimes it's just expression, like just having community talks. That sometimes goes to community outreach, which is one block at a time. Mm-hmm. So we go across the country. For one day, we go to the retailers, we go to stores, we go to the police department, we go to sanitation, and we pick all the trash up off the floors, off the street. If there are washing machines or mechanical devices, city comes out and supports us. Mm-hmm. So we believe cleanliness starts from within, right, and it's a reflection of without. We have another thing called Shelter from the Streets, which we do in New York City. We go to all 5 boroughs. Mm-hmm. We take brand new clothing, medicine, food, toys. We go to different shelters. We go in the tunnels, in the subways. And it's a 2-week program that ends on that Sunday. And these are give-ups, not give-outs. Mm-hmm. Generally, when you have give-outs, you'll get a percentage of people that are just hustling or trying to survive, and it's right, the fastest pathway to an immediate problem. But we get them engaged in the programmatics, and they show up and they get a gift or an offering or sometimes hear an ear. Mm-hmm. It's really effective.
So it's an outstanding commitment to the community. And so how is it funded?
Well, it's funded on a premise, something that I say, beg, borrow, and wheel.
Yes.
So we beg people to help us. We are right now. We borrow, and that borrow is not a return. That's a borrowing from what you have in hand and heart today, that when you get commissioned to heaven or wherever you're going to end up in your peaceful grace, it will return. Right. And we wheel around the block, whether we're driving, we're on a skateboard, or we're just wheeling and dealing to get it in. Some people beg, borrow, and steal. We beg, borrow, and wheel.
Right.
And that's the way the righteous have to serve, and that's the best way to bring people to order.
So I hear your passion and for your commitment to the community. And considering the world today and the universe we live in and what's happening here in the United States, and I'm not asking you to make a political statement, okay, how does this really fit into making our world better, a better place to live for folks, especially given the environment that we're in today, how we connect to one another, how we preserve our cultures, and how we explore each other in ways that, our cultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So
my answer to that would be, I think if you look at the history of art has, art speaks to power. Mm-hmm. For generations and centuries, ancestors have had art speaking to power. If you go to Greece, if you go to Italy, and also if you go to the griots, if you go to parts of Africa, different civilizations, when that art spoke to power, sometimes it was a deaf ear. But when art speaks to art, God knows that it's clear. Right. Whether you're in Africa and you're running around with a spear, or you're trying to go to the British Empire and say, listen, my dear, now give it cheers. Sorry, guys, I'm kind of going off topic. But if I didn't do this, I guess I'd be slightly myopic. Right. But if I didn't make that note, I want to make it clear so I don't drop it. So it's on the floor, but take it easy and mop it. Sorry, guys, that was the Sweetie G minute. Edit that out.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate that, and it really goes along with the whole commitment to the community and how we kind of need to take a lighter moment sometimes and
Have
really
some
deal
fun
with some of these issues.
Yep.
Because the artists are at the forefront of a lot of the social ills, and if you go back to the civil rights movement right here, Fulton County and Atlanta, this is the birthplace of the civil rights movement. Right. And so, we tie it all back to what we're doing today. It can be tied back to civilizations.
I agree.
So we're very excited about the work that
and to your point, so how does that change, right? What are the changing trends? Generations become wiser as they grow. And when I say art speaking to art, if we're not getting truth, because you're talking about economic and global and political situations, so say if the government is not, they don't want to hear this truth. Mm-hmm. When artists are amongst themselves and art stays pure, there's always a holistic space. It's like pure water. You may not be able to get it up the hill, but people can come down the hill to the water. So if the art remains pure, such as us partnering, having the King's exhibition, partnering with government, you don't see governance that is actively involved, that's so free-hearted, free-handed, and I commend you all on what you've done, but that's what happens when art speaks to art. You're an artist by nature. Right. We're all artists, so that's what I'm so excited about, this art-to-art thing.
So I definitely want to commend you for the work you do with the Book Bank Foundation.
Thank you.
And certainly it's outstanding work. It's addressing some of the social ills that we have.
Yeah.
And, the more we can do for each other to help, one brother helping another, concept is always good.
I love it.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we will explore Dr. Toby's passion for the arts. Stay tuned. And we're back with Dr. Glenn Toby. And we're going to talk about what brought this partnership together, Fulton County Arts and Culture and Dr. Glenn Toby. I want to give a shout out to our District 5 Commissioner, Marvin Arrington Jr., who is also one of our executive co-sponsors for All People Are Culturally Enriched, who serves on the Board of Commissioners. And he brought this whole thing together. So let's talk about that and how you got connected with Commissioner Arrington.
I'm excited. I've been involved with governance as a collector, trying to reach people, right? I think what Commissioner Arrington has done is incredible. I mean, I look at your background too, what you've done in DC. I did all my research. I know the players I'm dealing with, and you guys, no, it's true. I mean, you guys are academically and more experienced than I am in the world of art. I have a passion for the art. I've had personal funding to acquire the arts, and I think when you get those dynamics, somebody that can operate in bureaucracy, that knows the business of art, private and in the government sector, and you put that with a politician who, Marvin Arrington, when he saw me at a showing before from some pieces of my private collection, and he said, the people need to see this. These people need to see this. We spoke about it. It was difficult to put together because of the budgeting and all the logistics, which you did an amazing job in pulling us all together. And it was just the magic of having, I guess it's a curated show. You have different pieces. The King's Exhibition. Right. So the King's Exhibition, I had the honor of meeting Jean-Michel's father, Gerard, when he was alive, and Jeff Jaffe, who's one of the top gallerists in the world, a dear friend of mine who sold me the works. Jeff introduced me to Gerard, and we talked and exchanged, and I kept coming back. And I hugged him because I knew I was reading the newspaper, he was suffering because Madonna was fighting the estate, and all these other people were poaching artwork. And I just gave him a hug and said, I'm from a hip hop background, and what your son has done for culture and for people like me is incredible. So I know you're in pain right now. I want to thank you for giving birth to your son. And his father, I want to respectfully say, was maybe emotional about it. And it was like me talking to my own father. And he told Jeff, give him some of the pieces out of the Untitled Suite. Then Jeff told me what the prices were going to be, and Jeff looked at me like, "There's no time for negotiation. Tell me you're going to buy this." And I just bought it blind because they didn't do the unveiling. DeSanctis was behind putting these pieces together, and then there was a lottery. They put me at the front of the lottery. Obviously, these particular pieces are owned by Bill Gates, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Swiss Beats, Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and some other leaders of countries that we won't mention. So there's 85 in this particular, the Untitled Suite. And out of those 85, I have one of the lots of those 85. And I think the greater calling to it is it's almost like this is really living. This art is really alive. Like it used to sit in my house. I have different things in different homes and just really didn't do much on the wall. You know, people, if they visit me, they'll be like, wow, this is what this is. But when you put it in the center of the city, it's like it's taking its own life, you know? It comes into a life form.
So with this exhibition, there were a lot of creative forces that came together to put this exhibition together. It started with the High Rise Show on October 4th with Shower House. Let me give a shout out to Shower House and also the other partners that were involved in that process. We definitely commend you for and appreciate you for loaning the work to us so that we could share those with Fulton County residents. You know, there were a lot of people who brought this together. I mean, for real, so many folks.
Countless.
And we had about 3,500 people show up, lines around the building to get in to that show. And then we moved over here to the Southwest Art Center.
And I think what was miraculous, like you'd have to deal with governance, you have to deal with logistics. When you have your own capital base, I'm able to move around any way that I want to move. And I learned so much more about how important it is to endear the hearts of artists who are undiscovered. I found a young man by the name of Sue who ended up becoming a curator for Bookbank's art department. And it's been amazing. I met so many people I would never get a chance to meet because of you having an open heart and your staff being able to put all these different artists and curators and all this talent in one space. I think the fourth was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and I've done this a little bit.
So you also included some international artists as well and some other emerging artists in the show. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, Javante McCall has been pretty much overseeing the gallery, my personal gallery. He found this amazing gentleman, Chris, and Chris has a school in Kenya, and they're trying to raise money to take care of this school. It's self-funded as the book bank is, and we've been trying to sell the art and showcase the art and bridge some different international programs, and much of it is here. We put together this program with Kevin Thompson Jr., who we've been trying to take a piece of raising funds and then still be a platform to just showcase art and still intersperse and learn from dealing with you guys. We're 10 times bigger, and we're learning from the people that show up, and we're learning from gallerists and curators, and this is what I'm talking about, art speaking to art. We're letting the art speak instead of politics or money.
So I just wanted to transition a little bit and have you give our young artist, a young aspiring curator, a young aspiring collector, some advice.
So one thing I'd say, if you are creating art, if you're an owner of art, I think it humbles you. The key is to be humble. So I get the support of arts and culture. We went in the legal department. We worked together like family. I realized that if I didn't get a deal done and I wasn't open enough to share with other people, this wouldn't be on the wall. And I'm sure my brother wouldn't be smiling in heaven. His father wouldn't be smiling in heaven. Right. It's about being open. There's a great responsibility when you create art. There's a greater responsibility when you sell art. And the greatest responsibility is when you hold art. And I think it's been humbling for me to learn all the nuances of, again, the government, all these different agencies, realize without art, we would die. I mean, if you look at the different forms, Hollywood does the editing and controls trends and what's hot. Hip hop usually speaks on its own personal, direct voice, but art is a reflection of so many different people independently that cannot be controlled when it goes to canvas. And if you put them all in a collective space and we start to resonate, the world can be our canvas.
So a lot of creative forces coming together
to make it work.
So, Dr. Glenn Toby, your story is very inspiring.
Thank you.
And what you continue to do to touch the community is very inspiring.
Appreciate that.
And we appreciate the work that you do on behalf of the residents everywhere. Especially here in Fulton County, we're grateful that you're here. So I'd like to thank you for being with us today. And,
well, Lionel, I got to say this. I pray to be worthy of those good words, but it's the people behind me. It's the light that shines on me that's a shadow that people think it's me. It's all of them pushing us forward.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
That's our show for today. I'd like to thank the dynamic Dr. Glenn Toby for sharing his passion for community service and the arts. Thank you for joining us. For more information about artists featured in this show, please visit our website for links to arts resources. And remember, you can connect with us online on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or watch us anytime on FultonArts.org. Until next time, live the arts in Fulton County.